Hello, chess friends. Today I'd like to talk to you about Anatoly Karpov and most of his brilliant strategies that he's been adopting and applying, even in some of the recent games that he's been playing in the last few years. A lot of people consider that when you get to a certain age, apparently you cannot compete with the young players, and your games aren't really as strong. And I think that in the case of Karpov, that is definitely not true. His games continue to inspire me, even when he's playing in rapid and in blitz competitions. And today I'd like to show you a few of his games that he's played in the last few years, starting with a brilliant game that he had against Grandmaster Edward Romain. The game was played in the Cap d'Agde France tournament in year 2014, and it's a brilliant example of positional mastery to its fullest. Let's take a look and talk about this so we could see what are the key learning points. Karpov was actually playing with the black pieces in this game, and basically it started off with e4, d5, of course, white played, e takes to the d5, queen takes to the d5, and knight c3. Of course, that approach by white is very clear. He's all about just developing his own pieces, quickly trying to challenge the center, and it makes a good sense, of course. Black plays his queen back to the d6, as he doesn't have to worry about any of this, and the queen moves on to a safer position. He's ready to continue with moves like c5, or maybe even e5. It is a very, very good sequence. White played d4. Apparently, his intention is clear. He wants to take some space. Now, you may be wondering, why would a player like Karpov play an opening like the Slav? I mean, Slav is not exactly known to be one of the most, brilliant openings, and that's for a reason. Just there's too many complexities of the system, and mostly it's because Black is losing quite a bit of his good development that he otherwise needs. But then there is this other idea that despite all of that, he can get not just a very fast development, but also a very strong counterattacking position. And you can see that because of the h3, bishop to f5, knight f3, and knight d7. Really, the development goes very close to what actually Black wants to do, and that's preparation for c5 or e5. That's going to guarantee a pretty strong break versus White's pawn and his center overall. See, just the idea always remains the same. All the Black ever wants to do from these positions is the chance to fight or actually battle as much as possible the White center. And if that's done, the rest is always really beautiful and big. So what actually comes out next? After the move of knight to the d7, when we look at this position here, Black's ready to begin. So he continued with the knight d7, bishop e3, e6, and then knight f6. So something very unique in most of Karpov's games you're going to find is that he always creates a setup. And what I mean by that is that he never relies on tactics or brilliant ideas to make his position. He actually makes his own position gradually, just like step by step, positionally, a build up that is perfect. So this is very, very important. Now with the move of knight g to f6 being played out, everything feels normal. He's getting ready towards the idea of playing c5 or even e5 when the time's right, and so the position actually does look quite good. Now, there's more stuff, of course, besides that. This is just one little thing, but it's a very, very good position, and it's gonna just get better as it progresses. So let's take a look and see. In the game right now, in the game right here, actually, right now, White's next move is longside castling, and I'd like to give you an opportunity now to think about this from Black's side and come up with your own way on how or what do you think Black should do to get to make his position better. It's a really Good question, and I think it requires to be answered precisely. The first thing that you can look at and see is that basically Black's got this wonderful looking queen, the knight, the bishop, and it almost feels like, okay, he should be ready to play c5, right? The answer to that is no. Definite no. Why? Well, it's not because c5 in its own is a bad idea so much. I mean, I guess it's not terrible. The reason is because when a move like c5 is about to come, we need to be 100% precise in terms of the preparation and the build-up that is provided. If we don't have that, then that kind of line is going to turn into something really bad. Like what White can do here is bishop f4, queen b6, possibly a move of d takes the c5, and before we know it, he would have opened up the position big time so he can attack us in our pieces. Remember that preparation is the key to any tactical success. And so ultimately, what Black decided to do was knight e4. It is a kind of a committal move on its own, I agree. It's not like a quiet move, that's for sure. But it is a type of committal move that really doesn't commit to anything much. All the Black wants is to just exchange the knight on c3, open up the possibility for the other knight to come down towards f6, and then maybe when the time's right, we're going to get ready and play for a move like c5. We just do a preparatory, a strengthening move on its own. White exchanged, of course Black retakes, and then White does knight of the g5. Nothing special, just a normal sequence of Whites and Black spades sort of coming into conflict. So what's going on next? I guess after that move was played, and once this was really done, the next candidate move was just a very simple candidate, actually a very important one. Black just chose to continue with the move of bishop g6, and that was great. First of all, it's because now the bishop is coming down at a perfect place. There's no danger. And secondly, it's taking the time that we need to make the proper exchanges or possibilities to, drop down some of White's good pieces, like the queen that will be exchanged and a few others. It was perfectly played, really strong, really effective. A lot of the times, in such a position, it's about that. How do you develop or set up in a way so that your pieces can ultimately take the proper control? Little by little, that's done very well and quite effectively, to be honest. So, what happens next? Actually, what happens next is quite interesting. White played queen to the e2. His hope is just to make sure that he gets to, just get that queen out of the way, and it makes good sense. Well, after the move queen to the queen there, then Black plays his bishop to the e7. Perfect move. What you see is the setup. Again, one step at a time. We're not really relying on anything big tactical. Just we're relying on the way for our pieces to step in one by one. And they do. And they do. Bishop takes g6, h takes g6, h4, and knight b6. See, the interesting thing is that when you really choose to go for such an approach, you practically let your opponent to make a mistake or a number of mistakes. You don't rely on something quick or, brilliant or tactical. You just want to let him to sort of push it up a little bit too much. And when he does, all you need to do is just take advantage and counter. That's all we want. So step by step, everything feels much better for Black at this point as it goes. Now, White does rook d3. queen b5. Of course, what black wanted was just to make sure that this queen can get in around. He's pinning down the rook on the d3. There's ideas like knight d5 that we can rely on. It's taking time, but black is continuing to regroup his pieces. How do you decide on what squares to regroup your pieces? Well, think about what they do. I think that's the most important. Knight's ready to jump on the c4 or a4, but it is the queen that's basically all around the place. So it is the black queen that can basically go anywhere or do almost anything it wants. We can have moves like knight c4, knight b4, bishop takes g5 if we want to, or other moves. It's pretty easy, and I can't say the same thing about white. So, what does white do now? Queen f3. Of course, he attempted to challenge f7 immediately. Pretty direct. And then black plays rook f8. Really nice move. Sweet idea of defending the pawn and keeping some extra pressure on white. Rook b3, queen d5. It's interesting that white really attempts to do something. He's trying to make any kind of attack or pressure with everything he's got, and he can't because the threats are practically missing. And this is something you want to do when you're playing. Let your opponent kind of force the position. Let him rush it up. Because when he rushes the position, when he forces it, then he's going to make mistakes or weaknesses that all you have to do is just wait to exploit. And that's exactly what's going on in this case. So just basically black is letting white to drive too far, and then of course things are going to go bad. The interesting thing is that when you actually do not engage to take the action yourself, first of all, you're safe. And it maybe sound a little strange, like how are we safe if we actually play it like that? But indeed, it's that set of pieces, the control, and the coordination that keeps it all together. After long side castles, white played with rook to the d1, and then there was knight c4. Knight back there on the h3, not a perfect move. And now what is black supposed to do? Well, truth is, the best move for black must have been knight a5, and I guess that's something that Karpov missed, perhaps because the game started getting short on time, but the reality is that anything wins. Anything is good. He chose knight x to the e3, exchanging his strong knight for a really bad-looking bishop, but it was only done because after f takes to the e, queen h5, knight g5, and then bishop takes to the g5, you could just see the problems that white was going to get. Like, for instance, rook takes to the e would leave the a2 without protection, queen x would leave the g2. In some way, this kind of approach allowed white to create the weaknesses and make the structure that further lets black to counter, and it was just so easy. Carlsen, Magnus Carlsen, the reigning world chess champion, uses that type of strategy a lot in this game, just letting the opponent to force the weaknesses and then just exploiting them. It was really powerful. I mean, queen h5, bishop takes g5, rook d5, queen takes g, and this is really beautiful because then once that pawn falls, it is just so I'd say bad, for him. It's not possible for him to do anything more complicated. What a wonderful strategy, but it's also because the sequence of pieces that black is getting is so good. It's just like this, in every piece supports the other, and it's wonderful just to look at it. Now, what about white? Can you do anything? Can you just take advantage? Not really. You see, that's the problem. I don't think so. So let's see next move. After that, obviously white played queen f3 in hope to just make sure that he escapes from the possible danger. But it doesn't matter because like after the queen comes down to f3, then we're playing rook d7. Now queen e2, rook d8. Karpov's strategy here was to constantly improve his pieces and let the opponent make the mistakes. And when he did, all we did was to exploit them. It was really simple. Of course, that strategy requires a very important thing, which I always call is the, you want to let him to make the mistakes and everything else, but don't forget, really do not forget. It takes time to do it. And oftentimes, what I mean by this is that you would have to be active. You would have to really build up or set a position that's strong enough. It's not easy. Either way, though, after king c2, now black plays e5. Then he actually does like edicts to the d4, edicts to the d4, rook e7. The open file is taken. The other rook is coming, and it was beautiful. And I think this was a great game of showing the mastery of a positional mastery that you could use. And there's another game that was played too between these two players, and I just really loved it. For a number of reasons. Most importantly, because Karpov was actually playing white versus Grandmaster Romain, and he used the same approach, just in a slightly different way, to take a big advantage, to get a great game. Let's take a look and see what he did. So Karpov started with d4. There was e6, okay, c4, and bishop to the b4 check. Bishop d2, a5. Now I gotta say to you that this is a system that I am not particularly fond of. I mean, black playing a5, bishop to b4. I mean, there is opening theory, I suppose, just like that. But between you and me, I'm not really very fond of such sequences, and one of the reasons is because the bishop could be very easily challenged, pushed away, forced to even exchange in the d2, and so many different sequences that really don't feel like they're gonna serve him so well. So it's a bad idea. Karpov didn't even take the time to play a3. He just wanted to rely on a development. Of course, he did it next move once white-black committed d5. Queen a4 and queen next to the c4. Now, I want you to see the outlines of the formation. With the pawns in d4 and e2 versus e6 and c7, what we get to see is basically the impossibility for black to stop white from reaching out and advancing. Bishop g2, short castles, and then the opportunity to playing the move of, you see, so just, it's like we have knight of the c3 and then e4. And it's kind of a wonderful resource, as we could do it, instantly. Advance, attack, and really keep black down. It's such a beautiful lineup without anything to worry. A lot of the times, we don't care as much about these type of sequences, but they do matter. And once white is given the priority and the chance to prep for e4, he'll do it brilliant. He'll actually do it this way. He will place that pawn up there, maybe even move it forward to the e5. It is just great, really, really good. And so, what happened in the actual game itself? In the game, bishop c6, white played the move of bishop to the g2, and then after the move of bishop g2, surely black has a lot of extra problems. He continued with knight f6, hoping that he gets the development right, but then white simply sets up for the knight of c3. It's a really nice development. The knight's coming out. We've got the e4 covered, and then we're going to get a lot of other moves to follow, like with short cancels and the preparation to that square. It's very good. Okay, black plays now castles, then short castles, knight d7. And what should white do next? There are, again, plenty of moves, but the best idea is to prepare. Queen d3. Center is amazing. I always say it because it is a complete true. If you get the center control from the very early stage, you can get some amazing advantages that you would love. So, you really wanted to have that opportunity to really build on that. See, now, with that in mind, of queen to the d3, black is certainly ready to advance and prep for the e4, but he's also going to get the chance to plan for rook d1, rook e1, and all those great-looking moves. Step by step, turning real. b6, rook c1, bishop b7, bishop f4. And so this actually looks fantastic. Every single move feels perfect and very natural. White pieces are coming closer to the center, and black is behind. So we're using this to transform that brilliant position. c5 and rook f to the d1. An interesting moment here, allowing black to exchange in the middle. See, what Karpov is doing is he's basically giving black a chance, an opportunity to open up and break in the middle. Why? Why would he do that? It's very simple, really, if you think of it. We're giving him a chance to break through and open in the middle for the simple reason that if he does it, you know, black is going to be weakening quite a bit the position. Not only the center, the D file, but also the whole development. He is underdeveloped. From the very beginning of this, we realize that he's very underdeveloped, like underpowered. And so if he actually chooses to open, it's going to come out perfectly in our favor. So that's basically what happens. C takes D, knight takes D. You might find it interesting to know, but it's really easy to play this type of chess. Positional, preparatory, gradual chess. It's easy. You can do it. It's just that most people get deviated. Instead of caring about the control, the gradual preparation, all those, like nice qualities, what they do is that they start thinking immediately about, okay, can I attack him here? Can I break through this way, this square, or that point? And it never works for them, you see, because they don't really get enough of the necessary setup, of the necessary preparation that is needed so that these sequences do work out. And of course, Black did. So what White did? He was great. He sets everything in place, and the position is simply perfect as it happens, as it goes, it works. Now what comes out next? Let's see it. Let's see it. This one, knight x to the d4. Apparently this is perfect. Black played with bishop takes to g2 and hope that maybe after the exchange, White's initiative is going to kind of fade. But it really didn't. I mean, let's see. Bishop takes g2. King takes the g2 was done. Rook c8 and knight cb5. It's because it's not based on just single threat or one type of tactic. All that White has available is based on the overall connection between his pieces. Karpov's strategy often requires a number of pieces to be really well set and improved. Because when that happens, when this is done, it's that set of pieces that we will use in order to, gradually just build and do everything to attack the opponent. And it's a really perfect idea. It's perfect to see it. It's really grand, and no, there's not too much to worry. What happens after that move next? And so basically, in this position, after the move of pawn to the e5 is played, of course, then White chose to do just the move of rook takes to c8, and then after rook takes to c8, there was, of course, queen takes to c8, and knight f5. The pieces are perfect, the attack is great, challenge is created against the e7, and we're wonderful. It's always about that. Really, just let's set up the pieces and keep the attack, keep the control, while he's got a lot to worry. So after knight f5, bishop to the c5, White plays bishop to g5. We're getting a really important position with our bishop. The knight is quite perfect to see, and to say the least. And yeah, it's really terrific. What about black? I mean, can black do anything to counter us? Probably, just not now. Not out of a position like that. Queen c6 f3, queen e6, knight c7, queen c6, knight d5, pawn to e4, and knight e3. There's b4, exchange, and knight c2. And you know what was really interesting right here is that White played knight c2, and that was I believe, a kind of mistake, because truth be told, all you got to do was knight c7. And a move like knight c7, after queen to c6, and even rook c1, you'd realize the power of all those pieces. Now, White decided to choose an approach that fights over the black active piece, and in some way it worked. It really did. It seems like after the exchange and the retakes, the d4 is hanging, and it's just the beginning of a lot of other problems that black was going to get as well. It's terrific. It's really well done and really well executed by White. Queen takes d5, knight takes d4, exchanging, rook takes, the rook jumps into the c check. It was always that constant domination that white was having by every single one of his pieces, and that's something you really want. When you're ahead in terms of development and control, you want to let your opponent to stay worse in the position for as long as possible. And it's because if you get to do it this way, soon or later, you know, you are going to take a big advantage, and you'll make sure that the opponent loses the power or the control of his piece. And that was great. Now, after rook to c6, apparently, black's got a lot to worry. So let's see. After this was done, surely black had not a whole lot of things to do. So he did b5, rook b8, h6, knight d6. Knight e8 was played, rook d8, but it's like Karpov's the king of endgames. Really, all he needed to do to make sure this just keeps getting better is to now improve the bishop, to keep the rook forward, and to let the opponent really stay back. And he does. Just like literally every single piece of black is on an awful in an awful position. He doesn't do anything. He has no real like strength, power, or whatever you call it. And next move there's going to be the move rook takes to the b5. So white's quite quickly winning. Very effective game. f6, bishop f4. Of course, black just blundered the rook. But I mean, even if he didn't, that would have been still a very bad game after rook takes b5. So this is a really another quite interesting game by Karpov, who was able to outplay his opponent by simply getting a much better structure that he further developed and enhanced to a practically easy to win type of situation. Let's take a look at another one. Now, post his, I'd say, kind of unofficial, I believe, retirement, Karpov played number of rapid and blitz matches, but truth is, most of these are kind of difficult to analyze because, I mean, okay, rapid and blitz is mostly, you know, based on the luck, and it's really just more of a an entertaining type of chess. The real games, however, I've been a witness of a few games that he's played, classical games in the Bundesliga, and he's won them so brilliantly, which shows to me that he still has an incredible level, in his play that could make even the greatest players of this age to still tremble upon his incredible power. The game that I want to show you was played between Karpov himself and Robert Kempinski. It was played in year 2016 in the Bundesliga. So basically, Karpov started with d4, knight f3, e4, bishop d3, castle c3, and d takes to the c. Now, a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm not sure about the d takes to the c. I don't understand why that was played. And it's understandable. It takes away an important center pawn. And yet the reason why white does it is because he wants to open up some important, some quite valuable diagonals and files that he will later use to effectively better and improve his position. It's a great position. It's a great idea. After the d takes to the c, d takes to the c, what white played was queen e2, knight c6, and h3. So now we can see that black's possibility of playing a move of bishop to the g4 is being taken away. He doesn't really get that opportunity anymore, or not at least for a while. And while black is going to certainly struggle in his ability to push up, open, or do anything good for his pieces, white will quickly develop his own pieces in a quick manner on very advanced positions. That's how we do it. That's how we want to do it. So step by step, it always begins with this. Let's develop our pieces on the most advanced and the capable positions that we need them to be. Now, after that move was actually done, very interesting, then essentially black picked up to do queen to c7, and then white plays rook to e1. It was wonderful. Development is perfect. Center is good. And Karpov starts with his idea of adding small details towards his position. Now, a lot of you may not understand it quite well, like how does that work, but really, for a player like Karpov, the most valuable moment is the one in which he really sets up the pieces that he needs on these, I'd say, gradual yet very effective positions. Just one step at a time, making them shine. It's so beautiful. Black played with the move of pawn to the b6, but it didn't matter because actually after the move of pawn at the b6, we're able to quite quickly play with the move of knight b to the d2. It's a great looking move. Now this knight is actually getting to advance towards the c4. We can have that chance to play with the move of, even the bishop can move forward. It's pretty good. a6, and then after the move pawn to the a6, naturally, as expected, all that white has to do is play with a4. And then you understand the idea of all white's pieces coming together. It's all about that, step by step, just taking the opportunity to get our pieces closer. We have the option to play maybe with moves like bishop knight c4 and then bishop to the g5, and things look good. Remember that. It's all about improvement. Now black does bishop to the b7, and white does knight c4. So you could see that this is a kind of position in which the reality is that all white will be relying on is the excellent setup and the sequence of his pieces. That knight is going to have likely the idea of coming down to e3 and possibly even to d5. So it's really very easy, and we do it here. Knight to the e3. It's a perfect development. Now we're having the chance to think about that knight going up to the d5 most likely. But there is so much more. This is just a very valuable start. After knight e3 was played, apparently black had to do b4, then knight d5. I want you to look at the white pieces in terms of overall development. Don't think about them like how they look. They look okay. They don't look much better than blacks, and they don't look much worse. It's just that if you think about the overall setup and coordination that white is actually able to apply, then you're going to see a difference. And it's, I'd say, a very, very important pattern that really exists between whites and blacks pieces. That pattern, that difference, is what makes things really shine for white. Black does queen d8, and then we have bishop d2. Now, I'd argue that probably bishop g5 was a little more active, but white really wanted to rely on the consistency of developing all the pieces together. And so with that in mind, the bishop d2 move really does make a good sense. It's developing the bishop, it's getting us ready. We can have the chance to play maybe with some moves like rook to the d1, and it actually feels very, very good. It's something that white wanted, and he's getting it as the game progresses. Okay, so what's coming up next move after that? Well, black obviously had a little bit more things to be worried about. So he actually he picked up to do e6, knight e3, and then a5. Yeah, good job. And you can see that he is likely preparing for a bishop a6 type of move in this moment. That will help him to drive away the white queen and maybe get a little more space. So what does white do? Of course, it's all about knight c4. Terrific. That knight is coming close. We're getting to the possibility of playing a move of knight to the d6 shortly. And again, it's all done kind of gradually. Remember that. You do not want to hurry. So take the time and build up the position step by step. Knight d5, knight x d5, knight x d5, knight x to e5. A couple of those exchanges were just enough so that white can play ahead with f4. And then we're seeing that the attack against the black bishop is really terrific. It's driving the black bishop out of the way. He has got enough to worry, so that's why actually what black played was the move of, he had to move it back on this square of g7, and then white plays e5. Now, you might say that it's unclear how white is better here. And I have to agree with you. It is unclear how exactly he's going to play out. And yet you understand that there were certain huge improvements that were actually created with some of the last moves. First of all, the black bishop was closed. Secondly, we understand that there is the idea of playing rook to the d1. Really, what Karpov did was to build a position in which the opponent is forced to constantly defend and stay back. And so step by step by step, he actually got to the point where there's rook d6. Now, what special did White do to deserve this perfect position out there? Did he do anything brilliant? No. It's just creating this, I'd say, connected and really well put development that later on allowed these tactics to exist. Now, black plays rook b8, rook c6, and white won the pawn. Black, of course, couldn't take on the d6 due to the a8 rook. So, in some way, this is what often Carlsen uses in his structure and in his games. It's like build up a good formation, and then as soon as you do it, what is really valuable is to make sure that you get the proper development, you get the control, and you can exploit whatever mistakes he actually does. You could take advantage of them as long as you stick to the proper development. I hope that this makes sense, and again, I believe players like Karpov deserve a special place in anyone's study like time, because there's just so much to learn from them.